Welcome, Antioch family, to our first ever digital family talk.
Love it.
Here we are. For those of you guys who have been a part of our family talks in the past, you may remember that we actually had a family talk scheduled for the last Sunday of March. And that Sunday, I think that was the first Sunday, or was that the second Sunday?
It was the first Sunday we canceled. Was supposed to be the week of family talk.
Was supposed to be the week of family talk. And so, as many of you know, if you don't know by now that we've not been meeting, I seriously question your commitment as family members.
We'll put a sign on the door for this Sunday.
All jokes aside, you guys, it has been just a crazy and turbulent time that we are in. And the purpose of this video today is somewhat different than our normal Sunday morning videos. This is to talk about house issues and house matters. And I just want to throw out a very, very quick reminder on what family talks were designed to be about. The purpose for our family talks, which happened quarterly, we started this last year, was for the members of Antioch Church to connect regularly around the most important issues of the house. So by now, I know that a lot of you have questions, and these are all incredible and valid, legitimate questions. Questions particularly around when are we going to get back together? And so that's going to be one of the things that we talk through and address today. But before we do that, I first and foremost just want to say to all of our Antioch family, guys, thank you. Thank you so much for remaining such a vibrant and vital part of the Antioch family, the Antioch community. We have felt this. We have seen this in so many ways. This morning, I was on the Friday morning, 6:15 a.m. Men's prayer meeting that Mike Rice leads. I've been on the Wednesday morning prayer meetings that Jeff leads via Zoom. And to know that there's just an army of men that are praying for me, that are praying for the leadership of this house, that are praying for Antioch Church. I know that there are pockets of women that get together on a very regular basis, sometimes weekly, that are praying into the state of the house, that are praying over the church. And I want to say thank you for all of your prayers. We need them, the house needs them, the city needs them. So keep praying. Number two, guys, thank you for staying connected. I am just so happy every time I jump on a Zoom call and I'll see a pocket of young adults that are gathering over Zoom, or I'll see leaders meeting over here. I know that the Kindred ladies have been getting together every Thursday night, I believe at 8 p.m., jumping on a Zoom call, staying connected, encouraging one another. This is happening on so many levels. Jonathan, have you been on some Zoom calls as well?
Yes, we've had some worship team Zoom calls. I know GC is having
weekly
every
Zoom week. Calls. Christian and Ellie Tompkins crushing it.
They sure are.
Yeah. So guys, for those of you who have chosen to take time out of your schedule, I know it can seem a little awkward. I know it's definitely not as great as meeting together. However, it's definitely better than not connecting at all. And thank God for technology in this hour. So for all of you who have taken advantage of remaining connected, thank you guys so much. I would say thirdly too, thank you so much for all of your support, your vocal support. Thank you for understanding where we are at right now. This is not an easy challenge to navigate for any leader in any space, in any jurisdiction that leaders are leading in. And thank you for being patient with that. I feel that, I sense the vocal support of our spiritual family and our community. And then Jonathan, you can speak to this, guys. We have been humbled, we have been overwhelmed, we've been blown away just by your continued faithful giving. Jonathan, can you just speak on that for a minute?
Absolutely. So I think emotionally I was prepared for us to definitely take a hit, if for nothing else, just from the lack of visitor contributions. You know, just having just the members or the people who are committed enough to find us on our website or on Facebook, and then who are going to remember from the cues, oh yeah, I need to keep contributing. We've had people driving by every week dropping their envelopes through the little mail drop over here. We've had more people take their giving to recurring giving, whether via text or whether just on Planning Center online.
It's fantastic.
And quite honestly, the state of finances has really not changed at all negatively.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been really amazing. And also, we've had a number of people contribute specific gifts for benevolence.
Yes.
And some of those gifts have already gone out.
Yes.
And there are also things that we are still considering for individuals and ministries here in town for how we can allocate some of those funds wisely. So
absolutely. Antioch, you guys are an incredible, incredible church. You're an incredible family. And again, we're so proud of you and we're so grateful for you. Thank you so much for your faithfulness in this arena. I wanted to just very quickly, and Jonathan, please feel free to weigh in on this. I wanted to just give you a very, very quick pastoral word. In terms of where we're at right now. I know we've been dialing in to the videos, a lot of you. I know you've been staying connected via the e-blast and Facebook, YouTube, and those are all wonderful. But just speaking specifically to this very focused group, our Antioch members. And number one, guys, I wanted to encourage you. I know that this is it's just a crazy season. There's no way that any of us could have prepared for this or planned for this in a way that we would have adequately foreseen where we're at right now. I know that all of our lives, for the most part, have been disrupted and they've been disoriented. Moms whose regular rhythm were dropping their kids off at school have turned into homeschool parents overnight, dads as well. Some of us have experienced change in jobs, delay in jobs. The social connectivity, proximity, frequency, intimacy, all of these things have changed. Yeah. And again, I think it's in situations like this that reveal what's inside of us. They have a way of revealing something deep inside. And the first thing I want to speak to, I've actually had this on my heart since week one, is there's been a lot of disappointments for a lot of people. You know, one of the things that we've been able to do almost immediately is create systems whereby my goal in the beginning was that every single member of Antioch Church was contacted by somebody, whether that be a pastor, an elder, a department head, a small group leader, a prayer leader, just so that we could keep a very regular pulse on how the people in our church are doing. That matters to us. And one of the things that we have learned through this process is that every single one of us have experienced loss and disappointment on some level. Loss of opportunities, people who have had vacations that have been scheduled for months, if not even over a year. Those vacation plans have fallen through. Mission trips have been canceled. The women's retreat, which has been scheduled now for several months, was canceled. So many
graduations, proms,
yes, plays, weddings have been postponed, delayed, hopefully not completely severed. God, in Jesus' name.
Turn into Zoom weddings.
Oh man. But yeah, there's just been so much change and adjustment, and particularly there's been loss. And friends today, family today, I want to encourage you, as I know that we're well into this, but if any of you are still wrestling, grappling with the reality of disappointment and loss, you know, as your pastor, the first thing I want to say to you is that is legitimate and it is valid. The feeling of whether it be extreme sadness or whether it be extreme anger or whether it be utter confusion. Friends, all of these things, I believe, are very real results whenever we lose something that we hoped in, prepared for, planned for. That's a very real feeling. I want to encourage you to name that. I want to encourage you to identify that. And I want to encourage you to be gracious with yourself and give yourself the freedom to grieve and to mourn, even to be frustrated with the reality that there were things in your life that maybe you lost. And friend, I want you to invite the Lord and to invite His comfort into that space. Jonathan, is there anything you want to add to that?
Just only that there is, I think, one potentially really harmful temptation with loss, and that is to compare and to think, well, there are people who have lost their lives and people who have had family members die. I shouldn't feel so bad about, you know, my senior prom being canceled or a vacation being canceled. And this is, I think that's an unhealthy way to process these things.
It's good.
Because it's not really dealing with it, it's avoiding it. And no two situations are alike.
It's very good.
So there's no shame, there's nothing wrong with having these very real emotions about things that might not seem significant to someone else, but they do to you. And that's okay. still take it to the Lord process with family or close friends or whoever. And this is not a comparison game. We've all been touched in some way.
That's fantastic. Family, the second thing I want to share with you pastorally is to stay connected. I want to encourage you to stay connected. It is amazing how just, even whether it be through Zoom or a FaceTime call, or whether it be a text message, whether it even be popping up at somebody's house and saying hello to them from the window of my car, it is just amazing how those little moves towards relational connectivity help so much with my mental health. They help with the state of my soul. They help me remember that I'm not an island, that I am connected to a greater body, to a family that cares for me. They tether me to greater purpose. They remind me not to lose my vision or my motivation. Friends, there are so many things. I can't tell you how many people have reached out to me just when I needed them to, asking how I'm doing, letting me know that they're praying for me. And they have made so much of a difference. And in a lot of ways, I'm reaping the fruit and the benefits of sowing into these relationships for months and for years. And guys, I want to encourage you today, stay connected. There's so many different ways that you can stay connected. Number one, just on a very, very general sense, we have been blessed with some incredible volunteers and some phenomenal technology that have enabled us to bring some conversation, some worship coming to the table, a meaningful time of worship together on Sunday mornings. And friends, if you're not able to dial into that, or if you haven't, whether that be through our email or our YouTube channel. By the way, we have a YouTube channel now, Antioch COS is our Antioch channel now. We encourage you guys to subscribe to that. If you're not on Facebook, if for no other reason than to watch some of our services on Facebook, we encourage you to do that. That's one way of getting connected. Jonathan, some other ways of getting connected, staying connected?
Yeah, you hit a lot of the good ones, but I will make a shameless plug here for the wonderful app Marco Polo.
Yes.
That has been a lifesaver for a lot of people. Hasn't quite saved my life. Mostly that's Jesus. But, I mean, yeah, reaching out. If you don't have someone's number, reach out on Facebook, or a lot of these apps, they'll recommend people who you're friends with.
So good.
And it can be hard to reach out, especially if you're more of an introverted type. But in this season, there's just so much grace for that kind of stuff. So I would encourage you, even if it's slightly uncomfortable, just bite the bullet and reach out to somebody. And almost 99% of the time, it's going to turn out better than you thought.
Absolutely, absolutely. Guys, Zoom calls, if you're one of our females in Kindred, jumping on the Thursday Zoom call. Men's prayer, Wednesday and Friday morning. We're going to be exploring other, extending even some more options. I know that the Smiths Life Group, the Bixler's Life Group, the Coppers Life Group have remained in connection via Zoom. And so, again, the young adults. So if you belong to any of these spaces and you've not been taking advantage of that, I want to encourage you to do that amongst many, many other ways. And to Jonathan's point, if somebody comes across your mind, friend, I want to encourage you to reach out to them. Most of the time, that's the Holy Spirit, even if it's a quick text to say, hey, you came across my mind and I'm thinking about you, and just watch the ministry opportunities unfold whenever you do that. Thirdly, guys, stay encouraged. Stay encouraged. I know that I've had moderate lows during this season. I've had times where I've hit internal walls. I've hit times where my motivation has completely just dropped out, where I've entertained some really just crazy thoughts. And I want to encourage, I think that's normal. Yeah. I think that's real. And again, some of the folks within the church that I've talked to have hit some of these same internal walls, these mental and emotional walls. And I'm telling you guys, staying tethered to Jesus. This is not a condemning word, but it is vital. It is vital that we pay attention to what we're feeding ourselves in this hour. Guys, there's a lot of information out there on the web for us to consume. A lot of it is saturated with political agenda and or fear and a lot of uncertainty. But here is what is certain. The Word of God will certainly bring strength and hope and faith into our soul. The Word of God will help renew our mind when we entrench ourselves into these fear-based narratives and conspiracy ideas. Guys, just listen. I want to encourage you guys, stay tethered. Stay tethered to the Word. Stay tethered to life-giving information that is coming to you, life-giving relationships, life-giving conversations. Man, let worship saturate your homes, and that will help keep you buoyed above the waters of this craziness.
Yeah. And part of what's inherent in that is knowing yourself. We're not saying don't read anything, be ignorant, don't listen to anything. But I think we're wired in such a way where we if we're paying attention, we can know when something is starting to trigger in an unhelpful way.
So good.
And just pay attention to that and be open with yourself and say, I really am curious about this, but I feel like it's not good for me. I'm ruminating. I'm staying awake thinking about this at night.
So good.
There are just some really practical mental health things to be aware of there. You know, don't read extensive articles on coronavirus when you're trying to go to sleep. Things like that. Be wise, discerning.
Be discerning. I love that. So practical. And guys, finally, in terms of just this pastoral word for the family here, is stay mission-minded. And there's a couple of thoughts that I have with that. There's opportunities that abound in whatever space that we belong to. There's opportunities to be that positive light to those people that are on the front lines. Mm-hmm. There's opportunities to be kind to our grocery store clerks.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Little things like that. Being salt and light right now, I'm telling you, go a very, very long way. Neighbors that we've never met on our streets, prime opportunity right now to be mission-minded, to be asking the Holy Spirit, God, what opportunities are there around me to be salt and light to the earth, to be a faithful witness, to establish greater credibility, to build relationships that may end up in spiritual conversations or sharing the reality of the gospel. And let me just get really practical here, you guys. When I'm talking about staying mission-minded, pay attention to how you interact on social media. Pay attention to the tone. Pay attention to the tenor, the words that you're utilizing on social media. I think grace and kindness, I think patience and humility, teachability, always win out over snarky, sarcastic, curse words that some of us are utilizing in our posts. Guys, I'm not bringing a rebuke, I'm bringing an encouragement for us to realize, particularly in social media, the world is watching. Mm-hmm. The world is watching how Christians are interacting with each other, and the world is watching how Christians are interacting with the world in this hour. We all have things that we believe in. We all have things that we're passionate about. We all have causes that are close to our heart. Mm-hmm. And what happens is, we end up being very possessive and defensive and territorial. And if we're not careful, we end up being very rude and cruel in the spirit of trying to protect that which we think is right at the expense of protecting the hearts of those that are around us, or posturing ourselves to listen or pay attention to our witness. So for those of you guys who may have felt like you crossed the line, please hear this as gracious, loving encouragement to pay attention to the way you're representing yourself on social media.
Yeah, that was well said.
Thanks so much. All right, well, hey, let's get into some good news.
Woo!
Yeah. Hopefully that pastoral word was encouraging to you guys. Listen, in the midst of everything that's been going on for the past 10 weeks, there is still good that has happened. And one of the ways that I know many of you, as you have shared this with me, have postured your heart and your attitude in this, is that you're going to look for the opportunities. Guys, I think that right there is a perfect, I think it is the best way for us to posture our hearts and our minds and our activity in this season, is we're going to look for the opportunities in the midst of the crisis, because they are abundant, they abound. And we're just going to fire off some of the great things that we have heard. I know that we're just skimming the surface, but I think it's always good in our family talks to be aware of the goodness and the faithfulness of God in our community. So, Jonathan, you want to hit a couple of these?
Yeah, so a couple that I am personally aware of is, one, there are some testimonies in marriages and families. You know, this is the two-sided sword in this time, is that we're forced to be together with one another, which we can either choose to perceive that as an opportunity for closeness and intimacy and building relationship with kids and spouses. And many of you have children that are about to go either back to college or to college for the first time,
right,
or are making a transition from elementary school to middle school. Like, these are significant milestone times that we don't get back. And normally most of us live incredibly busy lives. Of course, there is, the difficulty of being forced to be near one another. But I have heard so many testimonies, really, from multiple families in this church about the number of family dinners, yes, family game nights, family walks, with particularly teenage kids, yes, or, above elementary school age. Good. Times that we just wouldn't get back. Yeah. So look at those strategically. This is not going to go on forever. And I bet in hindsight, a lot of the things we're frustrated with now, we might look back and go, oh, I miss it.
I miss it.
So, of course, we don't miss the negative things around this time, but let's cherish these times with our families and our kids, and I know that many of you already are. Another thing is, let's celebrate. We have so many entrepreneurs in this church. And guys, by and large, if you're reading anything about the state of national economics, right, you know that it is really bad for a lot of people. And a lot of the people in our church have either been affected very little or have been affected in even a positive way. Mm-hmm. And of course, we never want to celebrate the demise of other people, but we do want to celebrate that those who are working hard and have built infrastructure and have great ideas and goods and services to share with the community, many of you are thriving right now. Very early on, Cedron, one of our elders, was highlighted by one of the local news stations.
Absolutely.
How cool is that? There's been a number of things like that. And of course, the flip side is to remember those who have been negatively affected. But I want you to know there are many, yes, in this, yes, house who are working a lot, whose, yes, businesses are thriving, and they're doing great things in this season.
I love that. There's been some missional opportunities that have taken place. A couple of weeks ago, it was National Teacher Appreciation Month, yeah, and through our partnership with COS, Cause I Love You, we were able to bless Man Middle School, which just sits about 9 minutes away from Antioch Church. We had a team of volunteers respond generously to writing letters of appreciation to over 70 teachers and staff. Wow. As we're going to be working on developing and strengthening the partnership, whether it be with that school or other schools that are around us. That is definitely something that we want to highlight on and build on moving forward. I just got a text yesterday morning, I believe, that we have a member in our church who has a family member who has not been in services for years, mm-hmm, and has been dialing in and tuning in. I've actually heard this several times now, that there are people that would not don the door of a church service who have actually been tuning in, yep, to our services. They've been tuning in to other services, yep, of other churches in our city, which we celebrate and we applaud. And I think that is a win for the kingdom. I think that is a win for the gospel. I know that a lot of people have shared with me that this has been a season where, for some people, that they've been able to slow down. They've been able to reprioritize. They've been able to get healing on, mm-hmm, some deep personal things that they just would not have had the opportunity to, right, in the normal frenzy of life, and to be able to reevaluate what really is important. And I think all of those things are things that we should celebrate. Some people have been asking me for years, when is Antioch going to have some type of video presence for its Sunday morning service? And
all it took was an international virus.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, I just want to say that we have such phenomenal volunteers that have been stepping up. Lauren Oscombe, Rachel Gutman have been helping to make these video productions possible with filming, editing, as well as disseminating that to the larger population. Yeah. So man, those gals have been, and then also those who've been coming in for the worship team, yeah, every week as, mm-hmm, we've added an element of live worship. So guys, that is something to celebrate, and we will continue some form of video digital presence even when we start coming back together, yep, whether that be continuing to do our conversations. We are looking into, of course, there's a lot of things that surround this, mm-hmm, but we are looking into the equipment as well as the manpower to bring our services into a live broadcast platform for all of you guys. So those are things worth celebrating.
Yes.
Those are things worth. Oh yeah, and by the way, in the midst of all of this, there's not been people in the building regularly.
Yes.
We've had an opportunity to do some updates here in the building, led by Aaron Brown, who's assembled a team of volunteers who have come in on a regular basis. And I think you guys are going to be really, really happy with particularly the floors in the hallway, going over there into the atrium by the water fountain in the bathrooms, the flooring in the multi-purpose room. We've made some more additions and improvements to the kids' room. So those are all things worthy of celebration.
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely other things, but I kind of want to leave them for surprises.
Man,
but yeah, Aaron Brown, Martha, and Todd Swank have really led the charge on that, along with a number of others, but done some fantastic work. Not having Sunday as a weekly deadline every week has allowed us to branch out and do some projects that we've talked about, but we didn't know if we could finish them in 6 days.
Yes.
So in that way, it's been helpful.
And it's a good thing, because these projects have definitely not been 6-day projects.
Yeah.
More like 6-month projects that we've turned into 6-week projects, right?
Yes.
Beautiful, man. Well, thanks be to God for all of the wonderful things that He has done. And guys, listen, whether it be Facebook or whether it be you could always send your testimonies in to contact@antiochcos.com. You can email either of us as the pastors here, or Pastor Christy. You can email Martha. We want to know your testimonies, and we will do better at broadcasting those testimonies. Please share those with us so that we can celebrate with you, as well as send that out to the broader body. I want to just take a minute now to talk about some very, very quick. We've already touched on some of these, but I want to give a quick update. Many of you know that over the past few years, Antioch has partnered with Vanguard for an annual VBB to over 800 kids in our community. And we have provided manpower. We've helped resource that financially. It has just been a phenomenal outreach ministry to the kids in our neighborhood, as well as blessing the kids in Antioch and Vanguard. And typically that VBB happens on the 1st to 2nd week of June. And currently that is being postponed into July. The target dates right now are July the 28th, the 29th, and the 30th. But please hold those dates with open hands, as we have to hold every date within the next 4 to 6 months. We have to hold with open hands. But that right now is the target date, July 28th, 29th, and 30th. We will be participating with VBB again with Vanguard Church to bless the kids in our neighborhood.
Just one other quick thing. I don't know if it was even on our notes, but we will be broadcasting to partner with Life Network's Walk for Life, which is going to be a virtual walk this year. And the next couple of Sundays, embedded in our Sunday morning video, there will be the promotional video for Walk for Life. So please look for that over the next at least 2 Sundays.
Absolutely. I appreciate you mentioning that as well, because guys, we have a handful of Antioch church members who are also staff members at Life Network, and just having a little bit of inside information there with the ministry. Walk for Life is one of their largest fundraising initiatives that happens. There's 2 big ones, and this is one of the 2. And numerous pregnancy centers around the country have experienced quite a significant dip in their donations and contributions around their fundraising walks. And so the president, Rich Bennett, has specifically asked that we would be praying that there would be enough communication, that there would be enough mobilization around this event, that we would not experience a significant dip with the walk contribution. So be praying with that, and also be participating, whether that be doing a walk around your neighborhood, or doing a walk and gathering sponsorship for that. We want to make sure that you know that the walk is still happening, and we can still participate with it. More information to come on that. I kind of feel like a newscaster here.
Yes, Frank.
More Frank. Bill. All right, Tom, take us to the weather. Yeah. Okay, now it just got weird. All right. Now let's get down to the nitty-gritty. I did that for Rachel Gutman. A couple of questions, and Jonathan, my list here is a little sparse because the big thing here is reentry and return. But I do want to hit a couple of questions that have come to us. Number one, people have asked, hey, is the July sabbatical still happening? And I'm only laughing because I think we've kind of had a sabbatical.
A wee bit of a sabbatical.
Our volunteers, thank God, have been able to have somewhat of a reprieve in terms of their Sunday morning service responsibilities. So let me just answer it like this. Everything is up in the air in terms of even when we are able to get back together again. And when we get back together again, we will have a limited volunteer force. We know that because there will be some people who will not feel comfortable or safe returning back to larger gatherings, and we want you to know that we absolutely respect that. But there are certain things that happen on a Sunday morning programmatically, particularly as it relates to ministry to kids, that just cannot happen without faithful volunteers. And so all of that being said, we feel like it's expedient for us to really put our attention and to put our energy and to put our work into galvanizing our services again. They're going to feel in a lot of ways like those sabbatical services, just because when we go back to meeting, we're going to have to start meeting incrementally at smaller and smaller gatherings. So we're not officially calling July a Sabbath month, but the feeling of it in a lot of ways, just because services will be so scaled down, will in a lot of ways feel like the July Sabbath services. You know, one question that we ought to entertain is whether or not we're going to have our service in the park on the first Sunday of July, and that is a to be determined. I think it's a great idea.
We'll just ask the governor if we can do it.
I'll do that. I'll give Governor Polis a call and say, hey, what do you think about us meeting in parks the first Sunday of July? There have been, I'm only bringing this up because there have been some people that have asked about the Duncan Sabbatical 2020, and I think that is so kind. I really do. I'm blessed that we have a congregation that understands or is understanding the importance of the rhythms of sabbaticals, and we just feel like Christy and I, as we've talked through this, and we began having these talks from week 1, you guys. Not knowing how long this was going to last, our primary responsibility is the love and the care, the ministry and service to Antioch Church. And we always want to posture ourselves to do what's best for that arena and for that space. So with that being said, we're taking off next week. I'm just kidding. No, we have suspended our 2020 sabbatical, and we're doing that joyfully. We're doing that gratefully. And we're doing that with the best attitude and the best heart, you guys. What's most important for Pastor Christy and for me in this hour is for us, as soon as we start resuming services, what is most important is that we are here with you, in front of you, beside you, behind you. It is important that we are right there in the midst of us re-energizing, re-galvanizing, rebuilding, and strengthening the house together. So that is our primary focus whenever we start having services together again. And the sabbatical will come. It will happen. And we're very confident in that.
When will we gather again?
Well, that is awesome. What
a nice transition?
A perfect transition and an awesome lead in. So let us talk about re-entry. I know that's really why all of you guys have stomached the first 20 minutes of this video, or 30, however long it's been. Let us talk about this. And the way I want to frame this is, number one, there is an approach that we have taken as staff members, and we take this as leaders, and that is an approach of learning how to lead well in times of uncertainty. In fact, uncertainty creates the need and the vacuum for leadership. I mean, if everything was certain, we really wouldn't need leaders. And so leadership is required in this arena. That being said, this is a space that we've not been to before. And so one of the things that we try to do is we try to identify what is clear in the midst of the uncertain. And for those of you guys who have followed Governor Polis at all in his press conferences, I think that Governor Polis, in terms of a leadership perspective and the way that he has approached this crisis and the solutions moving forward from a leadership vantage point, you'll notice that he really says a lot of the same things over and over again. He focuses on the things that are clear. And so we have to focus on the things that are clear, because there is a lot that is unknown, and a lot of our decisions are pending on the decisions that our governor is making in terms of the data that he's receiving from all of the task force that are involved and the recommendations that he is making. I want to preface all this by saying that quite early on, about 10 weeks ago, the governor reached out and he asked that the leaders of faith communities would join him on very regular phone calls. Number one, to hear directly from him, and number two, to share their perspectives, to ask questions, and just to kind of pull back the curtain and to allow you guys to look in behind the scenes. Governor Polis has not been strong-arming any of the faith leaders. He has been making appeals, and he has been saying, guys, my heart, my posture towards all of this is to protect the sanctity of human life, to protect human dignity. He is holding the tension between making sure that our hospitals are well-resourced, making sure that they're not overloaded, making sure that we flatten the curve, while also holding on the other side the tension of making sure that this is sustainable, making sure that small businesses get off the ground. And so this is a very, very difficult space. And before we get into nuts and bolts of logistics and details, I just wanted us to recognize and respect that there are differing perspectives on this. And guys, listen, just even from the small microcosm of those of us who are in Antioch, there are some of us who believe very differently about everything that is happening with the recommendations, with the guidelines, with the shutdown, with the stay at home, with the safer at home. There's some of us who agree emphatically, and they would fall more on the side of we should be hyper vigilant on being safe. We're going to do everything that we can to protect ourselves, to protect our neighbor, to protect those in our community and our family who are compromised, who are immunocompromised, who are more vulnerable. And so there is a posture there, and that is good, and it is right. And there is another posture that says that we can't go on with this too much longer. There are small businesses that are struggling. There are sons and daughters that are struggling academically. They're struggling emotionally, mentally, psychologically with their mental health. There are families that are breaking down. Guys, listen, we have to recognize and realize that both sides of this spectrum are legitimate and they're valid. And both cases have an element, a very good and strong element of truth to them. And it's not an either or polarity. It's not a binary conversation. I want to make this appeal to you guys right now. We spent probably the good amount of 3 to 4 hours a couple of weeks ago as a staff beginning our conversation about reentry, first with working through all the philosophical and theological and sociological conversations around why a church would reopen. And guys, we've talked broadly and we've talked deeply around this matter. And our priority is that we're thinking about this theologically, that we're thinking about this less in terms of we're tired of this, less in terms of we need to do something now, reactive, the government conspiracy, political ideology. We're really trying to think in terms of, okay, how is the Word and the Spirit guiding our decision in this matter? And we look forward to sharing more with you on that more deeply. But I want to give you some highlights. And Jonathan, if you would, lean into this. I think, number one, the heart and the attitude and the posture that we have is paramount. Whether we meet sooner or later, the attitude of our heart, the disposition of our spirit is so important that we do not meet out of a defiant and rebellious posture, that we do not meet out of a fear-based posture, that we do not meet out of a careless or indifferent posture. And what that would look like is, this is all stupid, and this is all trivial, and this is all, why are we doing this? We should just meet because this doesn't matter. Friends, I don't think that's responsible. I don't think that's faithful. Jonathan, you want to add to some of these?
I think that was fantastic. I also think that, part of the thing that we have to be aware of is that the church is a gift to the world, that the church is an instrument by which God is at work in the world. And our primary task is to testify to Jesus. And so we're not just thinking about what we want for us,
right,
but we're thinking about what our role is in the community, how we are perceived. And none of these things in and of themselves are the entirety of the decision, but they all inform the decision. So we want to be around and we want to be here for the good of our community. This is not what, it doesn't seem like a good enough reason for us to get back together just so we can worship. We want to worship, we want to be together. But if it comes at the unnecessary harm of people who are not yet in this community, that don't yet know the Lord, then we have to take that into strong consideration. So we're thinking about the people in the house, we're thinking about people not yet in the house, we're thinking about people who we're not even aware of that might be paying attention.
Absolutely.
So yeah, there's so many different perspectives that we are trying to be faithful toward.
Absolutely.
All of them.
One of the ways that we have framed this in our conversation is love of family, love of neighbor, and love for the lost, or a healthy love for the world. The love for our family member. Friends, I care deeply about those that are in our community who are either immunocompromised or vulnerable to this virus. And now there's information that's coming out that it's not just dangerous to those that are over 65 or over 70. Guys, we have people in our congregation that I have 15 years of relationship with that matter to me. And I want to be wise and cautious, judicious, and responsible with the decisions that we make for those members of our family. And if that means I got to wear a mask, or if that means that I have to limit where I go or when I go, I'm happy to do that because I care about the people that are in the Antioch family. It's one of the reasons why I think it's why the church matters, right? And let's just be really, really honest. If we're not intentional about engaging in the context of our local communities of churches, if we're not intentional about engaging with people that are older than us, we're not going to care about people who are older than us. Right. If we're not intentional about building a relationship with the mom who has a son who's been sick, we're not going to care about that. It's more intuitive. We are more inclined to think about what is expedient for us and what is convenient for us. But part of the theological nature of what it means to belong to a church is that we are formed into thinking about those that are not like us, and allowing that to shape us, not control us, but allowing that to inform us and to tenderize us. And so this is answering for there have been some people who have asked, well, why have we not started meeting sooner? Why are we being so cautious? These are some of, and keep in mind, we are just giving you a headline. I mean, we could talk at length and at depth on every one of these issues. And I think at some level, in the right forum, it would be very helpful for us to do that. So we love our family members. We love the members of our community that are not part of Antioch yet. And we love those people of the world who are looking on. And we want to remain a credible, faithful witness to them. I personally do not perceive at this juncture, at this stage, I don't perceive the need for a defiant, rebellious act to gather together as a local congregation to be something that would be wise or faithful or responsible or necessary right now. That is my personal perspective and opinion that I hold to at this moment. If we step into a space where there is explicit and overt persecution of the church, and the church is being singled out, I think those are conversations that we need to have with our elders and with a broader spectrum of leaders that are both within Antioch and outside of Antioch to help us guide and inform those decisions. So friend, we're not wanting to be too cautious and too slow, and we're definitely not wanting to be too quick. We're definitely trying to walk in wisdom. And I'm asking you today as your pastor and your friend, pray for us. Yeah. Pray for us. We need your wisdom. This is not an ironclad decision that's made in a vacuum. There are so many factors to be involved. And it seems like in so many ways that when we make a very solid plan, there's new information that comes out that changes that plan. And it has become definitely a case study of change management and leading in crisis for sure.
Yes.
So thank you for hearing my heart on that. Let me talk with you here for a few minutes on what is clear. Guys, this is important to us. The right timing and the right execution of how and when we get back together is something that is important to us. We're not postponing this. We're not delaying this. We made the turn several weeks ago as a staff to begin preparing our infrastructure, to begin thinking through what kind of rhythms we would need to change, adjust, create, implement, remove altogether. Because when we get together, things are going to look a little bit different. And I want to talk to that here in a moment. Number two, what is clear is that we are setting our sights on June. We think, based on some of the data that has come forth, based on some of the insinuations from the governor, that there is some good possibility. There's not a lot of strong clarity on when that will be, but there's some good possibility. The date that I've heard is it's either May 24th or May 27th, when there will be sufficient data to analyze in order to make that conversation. In order to make that decision and to have that conversation. There's actually been surveys that the governor has put out where he has asked leaders of faith communities to weigh in on these surveys. So he is including the faith leaders on making this decision, and I appreciate that very much. So our sights are set on June. In our planning and our preparation, we are looking at some form of an opening and re-entry as early as the first Sunday of June. That would be the absolute earliest that we could get together. And again, we're waiting on the release, the green light from Governor Polis and the state before we move forward with that decision. The latest, we're not exactly sure when the latest could be. I think what's important for us is that in our planning and in our preparation and in our mental expectation, we are saying the first Sunday of June is a very, very viable possibility.
Yeah. And when we do gather, do we want to talk about just some of the things that might look a little bit different?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let me also just mention this, that between now and the time that we're gathering, we're actually going to be reaching out to a lot of you. Yes. We're going to be having meetings with subsets of groups of leaders, cross-demographically, those that are serving in various aspects of leadership in the church, those who have kids, those who don't have kids, those are a little bit older, younger, all across the board. Because we want you to help us weigh in on this. And if you have serious concerns and questions and challenges around that, we want to hear those. Yeah. And we need that as we're processing this decision moving forward. And we're also consulting pastors of local churches, particularly in Colorado. So for those of us who are looking at what churches are doing in other parts of the nation or in other states, there's definitely some, I think, practical protocols in terms of returning. But in terms of the timing, we're looking specifically to pastors that are in Colorado to enter into that conversation with. And I've already begun that with several pastors in the area. And here's what else is clear, is that we will update you quickly and thoroughly when that decision is made. And we're actually engineering a survey that we're going to be sending out to all of you as well to help us in making this decision. So please, when you receive that survey in your email box, it's going to come out very, very soon after this video. Would you please expediently fill that survey out, and on the spaces where it asks questions for you to give feedback or to ask questions, guys, that is going to be huge for us. So would you please fill those out for us to help us with this decision. So when we get back together, things will look a little bit different, and that is definitely something that is clear in the midst of the uncertainty as well. And I think it's important for us to realize that, to adjust our mental and emotional expectation. Social distancing will still very much be a reality. And so consequently, we're needing to limit our sizes of our gatherings. We initially were thinking about probably the first iteration of restriction would be at that 50 plus mark. But I heard a number from the faith leader call last week. Actually, it was just, we're at Friday. It was just this last Tuesday. So 3 days ago. And the first number that I heard was actually gatherings of 25 or more. Now, If that is the case, we will not be having Sunday morning gatherings with 25 or more. We're going to utilize more of a small group strategy, and we're going to be recruiting and expanding some more of our small group leaders. If that definitely is the case, that the first demarcation point is 25 people or less. If it is 50 people or less, we will begin having our Sunday morning services. And here's some things that will look different, some things that will definitely change. Social distancing in our seating. So what this might look like is every other row, we're going to remain open and encouraging people to sit in their families or those who are in the same house. So I know that we have a wonderful group of young ladies. There's 4 of them. They all live in the same house. Yeah, if you've been in the same home, sit on the same aisle, sit next to each other, that'd be fantastic. If you're not, then we're going to encourage you, and we're going to have some guidance and direction around where seating is going to be to help you find a good seat on a Sunday morning. The service length will be abridged because we're working through numerous scenarios right now. Antioch sits at around 300 people, give or take, depending on the Sunday and the season. And in order to accommodate those amongst that, and we recognize that there will be a percentage of those people who will not show up, and we understand that. And we respect that. And we want to make sure that that is very, very clear for those who do not feel like it is right or safe for them to return back to services. We want to make sure that we honor that decision and we keep them connected to the Antioch community. But we're looking at the possibility of 3 to 4 services at that 50 number mark in order to get as many people as possible facilitated. Right now, what is unclear is whether or not we will still have nursery or children's ministry. So we were prepared for that in our planning. I've talked with several other pastors, and they have said that at their first iteration of opening up, they are not going to have infants or toddlers or pre-K or even kids ministry. And so that caused us to reevaluate our plans. We're in the process of reevaluating that right now, as well as reaching out to those moms and dads who have little ones. We want to hear from you on this decision as well. Keep in mind that one of the biggest determining factors on whether or not we can have ministry to children is our volunteer force, our ministry crew members, their availability, and their willingness to serve in that space in this interim season. And so we're taking inventory right now. Having Christine and Rachel Gutman reaching out to those ministry crew members of infants and toddlers and pre-K and saying, hey, you were signed up for our ministry to our nursery. Would you consider continuing to serve in the first iteration of us opening up? And that's going to help us make that decision. What is also going to help us make that decision is if we have a lot of moms and dads say, even if there is ministry to kids, we just don't feel comfortable at this stage bringing our kids into that space. And that's going to help us make that decision as well.
Yep.
Jonathan?
And those decisions would also affect how many services that we have.
Exactly.
So theoretically, if we end up having more childcare, then we would assume more people would be able to attend, which might mean that we would have more services. But if we are not going to offer childcare, we would assume that because we have so many young families with young kids, that at least the kids and one of the spouses may not be able to come. So that's why we're still not even sure. We can't even say at 50 we're going to have this many services, because a lot of it does hinge on some of the responses from you and whether you would be inclined to come back sooner or later.
Right.
And the kids is the other piece that will help us make that decision. But we are winding down and trying to narrow in on what does the option look like, or what are the viable options for each quantity of people in the building. Also, the services themselves, Pastor mentioned that they'll be shorter, but the more volunteers we have, the more people are in the building, then that means less people can attend. So a number of the robust volunteer ministries we might tear back a little bit. The worship team would be one of those. Maybe ushers and greeters would be another one of those. Just if they're not absolutely essential, then we might look at having less people.
The people are essential.
The people are essential. The positions, yes. We want you to come, we may not want you to have to come and serve at all of the services if you don't have to.
That's
yes.
good. Yep, very good. One of the other things that we're looking at is increasing both the frequency and the stringency of standards on our sanitation procedures, and being very, very just strict on that, and being more rhythmic, being more systematic with that. Also, too, the way we enter and the way that we exit.
Yes.
One of the things that I've heard in a lot of my conversations is, the doorway of entering into the building, and that's the place where a lot of people bottleneck. And so many of you, if you've been, the place where I've seen this happen is at Costco and at Home Depot, where they'll actually create staging points for those people to be in line, and then they will systematically let people in as people go out. One of our solutions at the moment is having people line up, if there's a need to have people line up on the sidewalk going towards the west, going all the way down the breezeway, and then entering into the building. And we're going to have another video where we can probably map this out visually for you. But as soon as you enter into the building, and if you check kids in, then you would immediately go into the sanctuary through the door that's right there in front of the double doors. So that will be the entrance. We're going to block off the hallway. And then if you have kids to take to, if we do have nursery ministry, you would go in through the sanctuary, out into that atrium where the water fountain is, and then drop your kids off there. And that's how we will exit as well, exiting out the door by Jade Dragon. And again, we'll make this all visual for you as well. We have purchased hand sanitizing stations. We're going to have communion elements in the self-contained, prepackaged elements for you guys. So we are diligently thinking through if we and when we resume gathering, how can we do this in a way that is as safe as possible for all of the members of this community who are so valuable and dear to us.
That's well spoken.
Very good. Well, guys, this has been definitely a unique family talk, but I hope and I pray that this gives some semblance of direction for you. It helps you understand some of the leadership challenges that we are facing. Again, we ask you for your prayers. If you have any prayer requests yourself, please reach out to contact@antiochcos.com. If you have any questions around this matter or any other matters related to the greater body of Antioch, you can send your questions in to contact@antiochcos.com. And please, please, please fill that survey out, as it will be so important for us as we're making decisions. Antioch, we love you and we miss you dearly. I for one, am advocating for us to get together sooner than later, because I believe that there is also a very, very important dynamic to our spiritual growth and our development, as well as our mental health, our relational network, that is facilitated by the gathering and by our proximity. So I know one thing for sure is that I have taken for granted the fellowship of the believers. And I am praying and I am asking the Lord to mark me so deeply that I will not take the gathering of the people of God for granted ever again. So may the Lord bless you and keep you, Antioch. May He lift up His face upon you. May His beautiful countenance just shine, shine, shine upon you. And may He give you peace. We love you and we so appreciate you and cannot wait to be together with you again. Thank you for watching this video with us.